All right, let's take a live look across Fort Smith this afternoon. Foggy, overcast conditions, but we're dry out there, right? Maybe a little bit of drizzle as a result of the fog, but that likely should be it this evening. We turn our attention to what's likely to move into the area starting early tomorrow morning. First, if you missed it, we have a new winter weather advisory. This one in effect for Madison, Carroll, Benton counties. It was initially Madison, Carroll, but confidence this afternoon increasing that we'll see a few additional impacts extending into Benton County. I'll personally tell you, I think there's at least a chance we may have to draw that a little bit further south and include Washington County. If that happens, we'll be the first to let you know. Here's what's going to be taking place. For the most part, a cold rain for many of us. This is going to be about 4:30 in the morning. It's going to initially be moving into the River Valley. Yet again, at times, could be a bit of a heavy rain. We'll start to see some of that rain transition over into a mix once more in those higher elevations. Deja vu, right? The setup is overall pretty similar to what we dealt with last night. This is 5:30 in the morning. A little early for some folks, but others trying to get to work maybe. It's going to be a messy commute, likely for many of us. We'll really watch these higher elevations for that potential and increasingly likelihood that some of us will see that a light glaze of ice develop once more. Meanwhile, in the River Valley, we're sitting in those upper 30s. So it's going to be a cold, steady rain, but this is 6:30 in the morning. We'll go a little bit further. 8 o'clock, headed to work. Yeah, we're probably going to need that rain gear. Kids are going to need it at the bus stop. No question about that. But notice what's taking place yet again in those higher elevations, especially Benton, Carroll, extending into parts of Washington, a good chunk of Madison County. That conversion over into some sleet and at times a little bit of freezing rain before it all transitions over to just a rain on the backside of that system. Rain will be tapering off by the afternoon into the evening hours. Second half of tomorrow likely shakes out to be a bit more on the dry side. So what does all that amount to? Yet again, I think about 1 inch or so of a sleet snow mix. Not going to be entirely snow. There's going to be a little bit of sleet mixing in there as well. Just enough to make things a little bit interesting tomorrow morning into the afternoon. Places like Gravette, Decatur, Gentry, Siloam, Eureka, Huntsville, Clifty, Hinesville, maybe even extending as far south as Springdale and Goshen. We really got to watch that freezing line to see if that impact doesn't extend a little bit further towards the south. Now, a lot like this morning, another thin glaze of ice is possible. The primary location where that would happen, it's going to be those higher elevations, those treetops. We saw that out there early this morning. Generally speaking, it's going to yet again be just a thin glaze. So yeah, there could be a couple of slick spots, some light icing on the trees, your cars, other surfaces. Maybe your driveway's a little bit slick in spots, but overall, this is a nuisance. It's far from an ice storm. It's far from something that would result in disruptive power outages that extend for several consecutive days. We're not dealing with that, right? It's important to keep it in check. Nuisance at best. We'll want to watch those road conditions out there early tomorrow morning because it doesn't take much. A little bit of a thin glaze can certainly cause some issues, and that very well could be the case. For those that are just going to get a rain, I think this is how much more we can expect on top of what we've already got. Another 1/4 of an inch, maybe locations picking up about 3/10 of an inch, which is good. We certainly need the rain. Now, what we don't want is the bitter cold temperatures, and that is what is going to happen after the rain ends tomorrow. The cold Arctic air finally arrives, and by Thursday morning, we're looking at wind chill values, 6 a.m., single digits in northwest Arkansas, teens expected in the River Valley. Old Man Winter certainly going to be making his return. Valentine's Day Friday, a little bit warmer. Can't rule out a couple of spotty sprinkles out there, 49 the high. Saturday, we're going to crack back into those low 50s just briefly, but Saturday's weather forecast does include some scattered showers. I don't think it's necessarily going to be widespread at this point, but we'll want to make sure there's no additional changes. Sunday, it turns cold again. Next week's weather pattern looks to be just as active, just as busy. And I think we're going to have to really pay a lot of attention to what very well could happen Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. There's a sign in the weather model data, multiple different models, that there very well could be an additional disturbance, Alexandra, that brings a better chance of some snow middle part of next week. Now, that's an eternity away. We'll deal with it when we have to. I think the big critical thing right now is a cold rain for many of us tomorrow morning, especially in the elevations. We'll watch for some minor icing, not necessarily a huge deal, but it only takes a little bit to cause some slick spots out there. The timing of it being during the morning rush is more concerning to me, right? So we'll want to be weather aware tomorrow morning. We'll have the full team in tracking road conditions, live radar, you name it. 5 News this morning, as well as the noon news show tomorrow.
Everyone will be out there. And of course, sometimes when you're driving or you're walking on the pavement, what could look like water might actually be ice.
Yeah,
and it can
exactly
just be
right.
a degree or two difference.
Yeah.
That changes all that. So
Changes a lot of things.
yes, we'll have you covered, sharing it all tonight and as we track it tomorrow.